Today on the Coaching Life Podcast.
A successful program, one which meets the needs of students, is not based solely on a high school staff putting all the pieces together at the varsity level. It takes a community to help achieve this goal. The nature of success begins with building a positive culture between the youth and high school programs. Winning should be considered an incidental byproduct. Developing a tradition of excellence takes years of development from the youth programs to middle schools and then to the high school.
A lot of times there's a huge disconnect between, varsity coaches and youth coaches in an area, and typically it's not the fault of one side. They share the fault.
Yeah.
One day, a couple of guys sat down for lunch and a conversation began. They talked about youth sports, how to be better coaches, how to be better parents, how to be better at developing young people. Not only for the games they play, but for life. That's what the coaching life is, a conversation. And we welcome you. Now, here are the hosts, Chris Stewart and Pat Martin.
This is the Coaching Life Podcast. My name's Pat Martin. I'm here in studio with my colleague, my friend, fellow coach, and my elder, Coach Stewart. Coach?
Very much your elder.
Happy birthday to you.
Oh, you are warming up that singing voice.
Happy birthday. Well, that's about all I got.
We talked about your singing voice there a few weeks ago. Thank you.
Did we?
Yeah.
You're welcome. Happy birthday,
I
man.
appreciate it. Yeah.
29.
Yep.
Looks pretty good for 29.
29.
You know what I did today?
Plus 21.
Oh, really?
I turned 50 today. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. I sound excited about that.
I'm surprised you wanted to record.
Let me tell you what I did this morning. Yeah, I was too tired. Here's what I did for my 50th birthday workout.
Let's go.
50 squats, 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, 50 pull-ups, 50 presses.
Nice.
Overhead presses.
Nice.
But I confess, pull-ups aren't done yet.
50 pull-ups.
I still got about
tough.
35 to go. Yeah,
Pull-up.
I could get 15, and I was dead. Arms completely dead. I'm too heavy too. I can't do a pull-up like I used to be able to do. Yeah, I got too heavy over the summer, so I'm working on that as well. But yeah,
Good deal. That's I feel like that's a CrossFit thing. To program your workout around your birthday.
It was. Is that what they do?
Yeah, I remember going to fish CrossFit. When someone would have a birthday, everyone would dread it because
Because of something like that.
They would program the workout around their age. And
I just thought about it last night. I thought, I'm going to do something different for the birthday. And so it was mostly body weight stuff, obviously, but like squats I did, and I put some weight on there. I think I did 95 pounds. I mean, yeah, 2 sets of 25. I didn't crank out 50 right there. But you get between 23, 24, 25, buddy, even with 95 pounds on a bar. Like for me, an old man, right? Your heart rate and your breath.
Yeah,
you're out of breath.
I think you do that with your body weight, and you start to feel it a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you're moving.
Oh heck yeah.
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 Yeah. I did some overhead. What would it be? It's a clean into an overhead press. What would that be? What's that called? I don't know. A clean into an overhead
and jerk
press?
or something like clean and press. Clean. I don't know. I don't do those, but it's got some kind of name like that, I think.
Yeah. Why don't you do those?
I don't know.
You just haven't?
No.
Oh, okay. I just thought, I was like, I need something else to do, so I'm going to do this.
I'm not very good overhead. Like I didn't learn to press overhead very much because I was always told, you and I were told
right.
Baseball players aren't supposed to do that. And you should definitely limit that with barbells and heavy weight, obviously, if you're an overhand throwing athlete. But we still do them. We do dumbbell overhead, things like that with our guys, especially in the off season. You got to strengthen your shoulders. And so I've tried to do more of that as a non-baseball playing person now, as an adult, and I'm just not very good at it. Like when I did my overhead press, the 50 overhead presses, I just did the bar today for just 45 pounds.
Yeah, that's what I did on mine.
And it was hard to get those last three. I mean, my shoulders were just dead. After trying to do pull-ups too, that didn't help.
That's the science of working out. There's not a. It depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah,
that's how you want to.
Yeah,
your program.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I'm not very good at overhead squats. I can't get my shoulders in that position.
Like
holding the bar, the weight.
I don't do those either. You talking about all this CrossFit stuff? Sounds like.
Yeah.
You guys do overhead squat, like hold the bar over your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't very good at it.
Could you imagine one of your athletes trying to do that and they lose control of the bar and go backwards with it?
Yeah.
You've just blown out your pitcher's shoulders. I'm sure there's people saying, well, you got to have good form. I mean, you got to teach them good form, proper form. They ought to be able to do it. Well, yeah, sure, but I'm not going to. There are other things we could do to prepare our pitching athletes than that. I mean, you don't have to worry about it. You don't throw BP, do you? You get out there, old lefty. Do you throw some BP?
Why do you think I don't throw BP?
Because you told me you got great assistants that do that.
I do have great assistants. At least I did last year, and then they all left me.
Yep.
And
I have to fight mine to throw. I like to throw BP.
I know you do.
And they're always stepping in there. Wes is like, I got it.
You're like, oh.
Yeah. Dustin's like, I'll get you.
I didn't have to. Normally, a lot of times when we would later in the year when we were doing BP, we'd have guys swinging in the cage and guys swinging on the field at the same time, and I would do it a little bit there. But a lot of times, Coach Finlaw would throw the BP, and
that's also a good time to connect with your kids too. Because you got a bunch of other things going around, like you as a head coach, you got a bunch of other things going on, I assume, besides just people hitting on the field.
Right.
And you can get around all those other stations and people, some of the guys that are kind of maybe standing and waiting to hit off a tee or bunt station or whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. All right.
Well, Coach, we didn't have an episode last week.
You were at jury duty or something, weren't you?
Yeah, I was at jury duty. We're not going to talk about that. That's
right. All we can say is that we couldn't record because Pat was at jury duty.
Yeah. So thankful I'm out of that.
I've never had to do that.
Ever? Have you ever been called? You ever got a letter?
No, because I'm clergy.
Well, I'll be darned.
Yeah. Yeah, I started my adult career as a pastor, youth pastor, and there's something about I think there's some sort of exemption for clergy. There has to be. I've never gotten a letter ever.
Huh? I'll be darned.
I'm just assuming that. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I would think there has to be because as many letters as I've received.
My wife recently got called, and I think with one question she was dismissed because in the selection process. She's a principal here at the high school, and as soon as they found that out, they're like, yeah, you need to go.
Oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no episode. I hope everyone hung on and is waiting patiently for this one to drop. Right. I got approached recently by an individual that was asking me, my thoughts and opinions on youth sports as it pertains to high school sports, and how high school coaches value that institution, I'll say, organization of youth sports to their programs, or to our programs. And I thought that would be a good topic that we could cover today. I think it's easy a lot of times when you think about high school sports, you think about varsity. Right? You think about the varsity team.
Yeah, because in reality, your JV program is the oldest of your youth sports programs.
Yes.
I mean, at least in the terms that you and I are thinking about it today, right?
Yeah,
that we're going to talk about it.
Absolutely. And I think most people would say, well, your varsity squad, your varsity roster, your varsity team, and their success and performance is the most important part of the program. And I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say you would hope people would say that, right?
Right.
I mean, I think one of the problems with, which we will get into, with youth sports in connection with varsity sports is that not enough people think that way. I think that's the proper way to think.
Yeah.
That the most important program when it comes to winning in any given locale is your high school varsity program.
Yeah.
Boys and girls programs.
Right. The caveat to that is, if you want to make your varsity team as strong as it can be, you really have to value your youth programs.
You have to value your youth programs, and you may not be able to value
There might be
as much winning at your youth level.
Sure.
What I mean by that is you may have to value other things more than winning at those levels.
Yes.
Winning is still a value.
I'm glad you said that.
Oh, it is absolutely a value because we have to learn how to win.
It's a fundamental.
Kids they have to learn how to expect to win,
Yes.
right?
Oh man.
And it is a
Angel's
fundamental
singing right
value.
now.
But if you were to say, let's just say those two things came at odds. What I mean by those two things is development, skills, fundamentals, skills, development. Fundamental skills development. Let's say those two things came at odds in a youth program, and it was either fundamental skills, we focus on those, and as a byproduct, we might win some games, versus winning every game, winning the championship trophy at the end of my youth season.
Sure.
If it's versus that, then that's where I think we have to
That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem in your program.
It is. It's a problem for the varsity program.
It shouldn't be. They should never be conflicting one another. They should never be going against
They
each other.
shouldn't be. But you know what I mean by that is,
I know exactly what you mean by it. I mean, you think about youth baseball players.
kids are talented, right? Young kids are talented. I mean, you have some kids that are talented at a youth level, I guess is what I'm saying, and some that aren't as talented.
Right.
But you and I have seen it. Just because you're successful at a youth level, even at a junior high level, does not mean that your varsity program is going to be successful. What I mean by successful is winning championships.
Yep.
Winning championships. And because you're going to have some kids that are naturally talented at those younger levels that may not be, like they may peak, right? And they may not. And so, but all you did was focus on those talented young kids.
in order to win.
Did
Yeah.
not develop anybody else. And now you've got an average player in high school. He's not as talented as he was when he was that age. And then you've seen it all the time. Things even out.
Yep.
And so, in the terms of like a baseball lineup, right? That kid might still be a middle of the lineup kid, but you didn't spend any time at all, or your youth programs didn't spend any time at all developing those kids that are going to fill in your 6, 7, 8, 9 spots.
Right.
And now you're really weak at the high school level because all the focus was on winning the championships as a youth level.
Yeah. Or you have strategies that give you the advantage at a youth level that helps you win, but they don't really translate to the game.
Yeah, they don't
at a higher level.
complement development.
Yeah. So, when I think of that, one of the things I think about, especially in like 8U or 10U, is, just running the heck out of the bases.
Right.
The shortstop will have the ball in their hand, but we're sending the runner from
Recklessly.
third.
And it's not even reckless at that level.
No.
Right?
Right.
People would say, oh, it's smart. It's how you win.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's not smart.
But and you know what? There's something to be said about teaching aggressive base running.
And teaching dumb base running.
Right. And I've seen it too where, a couple years later, these same base runners they'll take off with the ball at shortstop and they get thrown out. And those same coaches will be saying, why in the world did you run?
Right.
Why would you do that?
Right.
The shortstop had the ball. Well, that's how they've played the game
Yep.
for the last 2 years. Yep. So they've been taught
And now they came up against a fundamental team that works on development, and they threw your butt out.
Right.
So you're not as talented as you maybe thought you were a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Because you did not work on development. You just worked on winning.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
Those two things have to go together.
Skill is developed and IQ is developed, and both of those equalize things.
Yes, they
at
do.
The upper level.
Yes, they do.
Knowing how to play the game the right way is definitely is advantageous. For a varsity program of any sport. It doesn't matter.
So I'm curious, what was the I mean, you don't have to divulge, the person you talk to, but what was the conversation? Like, a lot of our topics come from conversations that you and I have with people outside of our podcast show here, and we end up just talking about them here. Like, were they wanting to know, like, you as a varsity coach, do you feel like there's a good connection in our youth programs with your varsity programs, or was it just like, was it specific, or is it just in general? Like, was there a question there?
There's a couple questions, and one of the,
because I think it would be obvious, right? Yeah, of course we value our youth sports.
Well, I think that's the obvious answer. However, I would say, so any coaches out there listening, if you hear Coach Stewart and I say, do you value your youth programs? I think the natural answer is to say, of course I do. However, I would say, put away the words and what's your actions?
What does it look like?
Yeah. What does it look? What does that value look like to you? Like, what do you do to place that value on the youth sports? But we have in our area, and I'm sure a lot of school systems are dealing with this right now, but there's just limited space to practice a number of sports. Baseball and softball typically don't fall into that, I don't think, because it's played at such a high volume, in the country, that there's always places you could almost go to work out. And
the structures, there seems to be a better infrastructure for club and rec organizations in those two sports,
right?
Because kids grow up playing baseball and they grow up playing softball, and you have more. It's easier to build a softball field than it is to build a gym.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
There aren't.
Well, let's be honest. You can practice softball in a field. Like it doesn't have to be a softball field. It could be a field. Yeah, I think
the struggle and the challenge is going to be for those varsity sports that have a gymnasium, like basketball, volleyball. Like we can practice football anywhere. You and I can go over here on a college green and practice football.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
So football, baseball. All those outdoor sports, soccer. You can practice those anywhere.
Yeah, you're right.
Cross country.
Yeah, so things like, I guess, volleyball, basketball, wrestling would probably be one of them, because you got to.
Sure.
You could use any building, but you'd have to have that space.
Yeah.
Things like that, and they just we have youth coach. Really, coach. I think a lot of times. Go ahead.
You are correct though. Space and time is a challenge.
Yeah.
I think back to when I was coaching youth basketball here in Athens. I coached both my kids from the time they were in, second, third, fourth, all the way through sixth grade. And I don't know about, like, I'm assuming your area is the same as the one that my kids grew up in, and maybe most areas are this way, but like our youth basketball programs really weren't connected to the high school programs.
No.
We wore green uniforms and it said Athens, but we were a club sport.
Right, yeah.
We had to request gym time from our various elementary gyms and middle school gyms and things like that. And on top of that, it's nearly impossible to get the middle school gym, because you got a 7th grade, 8th grade boys and girls basketball. You have wrestling, 4 teams
playing in there.
Yeah, those are interscholastic sports.
Yeah, and we were talking about an hour and a half practice for 4 teams.
Yeah.
That's 6 hours.
Yeah, and that is a challenge that youth sports have, particularly in those indoor sports, I would say.
Right. So that was kind of what I would say the conversation was. What do we do? But it made me think. As a high school coach. Is there anything I can do? I'm the assistant varsity basketball coach this year. So
congratulations.
Thank you. When someone brings up basketball now, I kind of feel like I'm associated with that.
How can I help?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's what, to me, that's what came to mind. What can we do as coaches of the high school teams to help our youth programs? And we're limited, obviously. It's not. We don't have any more access to facilities in most cases than other people.
Yeah, there's a good chance that even among your own facility, you would like to have more time in there.
Well, that's for sure. Absolutely right.
So it's a challenge. Even
it's
for
a
your
constant battle, is what it is.
Yeah.
Everyone is kind of trying to answer the same question.
Yeah. So what do we do? Yeah.
What do we do? Yeah,
Yeah.
because here's what I think happens. Honestly, I think at times there can be some, there can be some animosity and some resentment developed because these coaches and these parents of our youth programs feel like that they don't really care.
We're
about
forgotten.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not.
And
important.
there's probably also some assumption that like you as a varsity coach could even do something about it, right? I mean, like you're the one that's supposed to schedule our time. Well, actually, no, that's not true.
True, right?
I mean, you're
when
not. It's a privilege for you to jump in and I mean, it's a privilege for that youth team if you were to jump in and help them find a space. But that's really not your role, right? Not my responsibility here.
Right, it's not.
But a good varsity coach would offer to help in that, I think, right?
And that's where the challenge comes in because what does that help look like?
But you can't expect the varsity coach to help.
No,
That's the thing is you've got to do the work. And I know you're a volunteer as
Right.
a youth coach. You're a volunteer. I trust me, I've been there. I get it.
Yeah.
It's not easy. But that's part of the program. That's part of the issue. Is yeah. I mean,
I guess that's part of the job as a youth coach is trying to figure some of these things out. Yeah. I think for at a varsity level or at a high school level, the problem that you have to understand as a coach is some places have these facilities. Some places have this space that the youth programs are able to use, and when you're having these conversations, those places become
more appealing and enticing to your youth in your district,
Yes.
for example.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so when it comes to growing the district and you start entering into those conversations, maybe one of the thoughts there is we need to build another gym. We need some space. I mean, we need to think of ways to encompass our youth programs as well. And I mean, that's a big picture. You don't get to. That's not a year-to-year thing. Like that's
It's not. And now let me kind of kick back to the youth parents and to those coaches, because when as a varsity coach, you're thinking about we're being asked to care about the youth programs. You do. I know you do. I do too. I'm going to do everything that I can as long as I'm a varsity coach to include and to help develop those younger programs. I think it's a necessity. I think you have to do it. But we have a big those of us varsity coaches that are concerned about our youth programs in a way that we want to go the extra mile, so to speak, to help them. We are looking at a bigger picture. We are thinking, okay, this is, we're not just thinking about our varsity roster at the moment. We're thinking about the youth program. A lot of youth coaches, a lot of youth parents naturally are only involved for a certain group of kids for a certain group of time. So if the answer is something like you suggest, well, let's figure out a way to raise money, to raise funds so that we can put up a facility somewhere. That's a long-term goal that doesn't necessarily satisfy their needs at the time.
Right.
So it's not that great of an idea to them. And you're not going it's hard for them to buy into that. It's like, I don't really want to do that because it's not really going to help my team or my kids right now.
Today. Yeah.
So that's kind of a challenge right back to everyone. I think it's a good conversation to have. The problem is such a big problem that you're not really going to resolve anything. You're not going to take the next step in improving anything unless everyone's on the same page. That's hard to do.
Yeah, you're talking about having a big picture answer for a big picture long-term answer for a short-term temporary problem in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
Like, I need a place to practice next week.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
And so how are we going to help that?
Yeah. Facilities is tough. Space is tough.
Yeah, I mean, it's why it's that's the appeal of travel and club, right? You got a place down there in Gallipolis called the Root that has a bunch of, I don't know, I've never even been in there, but it looks like there's a bunch of gym floors. And I've seen pictures of it. Yeah,
it's a state of
so
the
you
art
got
building.
16 gym floors in one building, and or I don't know how many there are.
There's 3, but there's there's just
but they're full size, obviously.
They're
That's
full
a huge
size,
building.
and there's plenty of space. You go into a lot of these buildings that house multiple courts, and they're squeezed together. Like you almost can't. There's nowhere to sit almost, except on the end courts where there's some bleachers or something like that.
And your kids might be playing in the middle.
Yeah, you might be playing in the middle, and everyone's trying to sit chair, a single chair, and so like the ball can kick off a chair or something. But the Root it's very nice. I was actually very impressed the first time I went in, because I kind of expected the same thing. I guess I was a little cynical. I guess I don't know what else to say. But when I went in, I was just really impressed, because there's plenty of room around the floors, and they actually have multiple. They got seating on the side. They got a raised platform that people can stand up there and eat and watch the games, and then underneath that there's seating too. So there's plenty of room.
Let me ask you this: so this is a club, or like this is a facility that hosts club teams. Right?
Yeah.
Are they?
And they have leagues. They have their own leagues.
Running a league, because I know a lot of people who send, like, your kids go down there and play, and or they have when they were in elementary school. And so, does your team have practice time on those courts too?
They can, but I believe you have to rent that practice.
Rent
time.
it and pay for it,
and people do. People do.
Yeah.
But that's an option. But no, it's not something.
So even in that club setting, it's still not solving the problem. That you're, I mean, there's a Joe youth coach has of not having a place to practice.
Right, it's a facility, and you can rent it.
Yeah,
so it's there. I mean, it's an option.
Yeah,
right. Is it an ideal option? No.
Right.
We are. My son's in 6th grade. Of course, COVID had a lot to do with this too. I mean, COVID stunted.
Yeah, you couldn't go into schools hardly at all.
Right.
Yeah.
We were very limited in that regard, but. Last year, just because there was an abundance of teams, he had 2 practices that were an hour long a week.
Wow.
And the year before that, it was just like an hour long a week.
Now, where did he practice?
He practiced at the elementary gym. We have
so 2 you guys were able to get time in there.
Yeah.
Who scheduled that?
That would have been the coach, right?
The elementary school coach.
Yes.
Okay. I wonder if he contacted the varsity coach to help with that scheduling.
Pretty confident he did not.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
So there's your answer.
Yes.
A youth coach, you got to find a place to practice.
Oh, that is definitely the answer.
I mean, that's
the answer. I guess my question to that would be, my thought would be, how concerned are we at that as varsity coaches? Is there anything we can do? I don't know that there is anything we can do when there's no space. There's no space.
Well, I know this. One thing I did not want to do as a youth coach, because I understood that we had, our team was a 3rd and 4th grade team, and there was a 5th and 6th grade team. There may have been 2, I think, actually, at each of those grade levels, so like 4 different youth teams, right? And then you got middle school teams, and we played during the same season. Same time of year that our varsity team was preparing to play, and on a daily basis as well. So the last thing I wanted to bother Coach Skinner with, who was the varsity coach at that time, was, can you help my 3rd and 4th grade team with that? Now, he would have. If I'd asked, he would have.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I need to. It's not something that I can expect there, right?
So what you're talking, that's a program there, is what you're talking about. You have. You say that the varsity coach would help if you ask, but your concern at your level, you didn't want to take away from the success.
Right,
of the
I guess,
program
So, so then, as much as we want the varsity coach to think about our youth
that's
program,
fair. That's a good point.
As a youth program, we need to think about the varsity.
That's
program.
a great point, Coach.
Yeah,
that's a great point. Yeah. So as youth coaches, that's something we need to strive for too. I know,
and we did. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, a lot of times there's a huge disconnect between, varsity coaches and youth coaches in an area, and that's not actually. I would say typically, it's not the fault of one side. It's
Right.
they share the fault.
Yeah, we do. We should. It's shared between both parties, right?
Right.
And I do remember. Now all these memories are coming back. As an old man, I now have these great memories of the time when I was younger, and my kids were younger. As I'm speaking as an old man, I do remember asking Coach, "Hey, what would you like to see us do offensively?
Love it.
What would you like to see us do defensively?" Right? And he put an emphasis on us teaching our kids how to play man-to-man defense. He said, "I'm not telling you not to play zone, because zone is important to learn as well, and they'll play a lot of zone when they get to me. But they need to learn how to play the fundamental man-to-man defense." So, if you're thinking about ratio of time, 75% man, 25% zone.
Yeah.
Think about that. And then he said, hey, teach them how to play in space. They're going to do a lot of read and react, a lot of ball screens, things like that. He said, but if you don't have the personnel to do that, do what's going to help them be successful at that level. Things like that, right?
Yeah, that's good stuff.
And Coach Adams did the same thing when we were coaching youth football. We talked to him. He's like, look, we run, he was running Power I back at that time. Of course, then they spread it out. Eventually, once a certain group of kids got to high school, they started spreading things out. But back before Burrow was in high school, Athens was a Power I formation school.
Yeah.
And so that's what we ran all the way down through the youth programs. I know in Nelsonville, York, for example, there is a very tight connection between their youth football program and their varsity program. And they have always had a major focus from the time these kids pop out of the womb. They learn how to block.
Yeah, it's lineman high school up there.
It's incredible, and it's not that they're bigger than you. They just block better than you.
Yeah.
The number of kids that we would have come over to the sideline saying, "I can't get up. He's holding me. He's holding me." We're like, "Show us where he's holding you." And he was
inside.
Yeah, he'd get inside those shoulder pads. Like, no, he's just blocking you really well. I mean, that's how. Those kids cannot get off a block because they hammer it. And what that means is they might have 5 different plays that they run, and they say, what we're about to run. We're gonna hand it to this running back, and he's going to go through the 2 hole there, and you just got to try to stop him.
Yeah,
you just can't get off your block.
Right.
That's the way it's been, and everybody knows it in this area. And why? Because Coach Boston went down and he made sure the number one thing that you could teach these kids is how to block and how to tackle.
That's good stuff,
right?
Yeah, I mean, there you go. How to block, how to tackle. If you have a group of high school kids that know how to block and know how to tackle at a high level,
you're gonna win some ball games.
You can do some stuff, right? The plays don't mean as much. The coverages don't mean as much. The schemes don't mean as much in that case. If you got kids that can block and tackle, you're gonna, like you said, you're gonna win some games.
Hey, you know what? If you got some kids that play baseball, that can throw and catch, you're going to win some games.
Throw and catch, right?
I mean, it's just as simple as that.
But I think that speaks to the value right there of, in a high school coach's mind of how important it is to be involved with the youth program, because you have that's what it can bring to you.
Yeah.
That's what it can bring to you, is just a head start. And, the other thing, Coach, that I would say, from a high school coach's perspective, we get 4 years with our guys. And, I know you spent a lot of time with your JV programs. Our JV and varsity practice separate for most of the year. We were together early in the year, and we had some practices here and there. But for most of the year, we were, the JV practiced after the varsity. So I didn't get.
And you had an entire roster of different kids on your JV team, right?
Yes.
We had a
JV squad and a varsity squad.
We had a little overlap, and so that makes sense for us to always practice together.
Yeah, I understand. Well, I guess what I'm saying is there's, in 4 years' time, regardless, I mean, you could say, the JV is just kind of an added challenge, but in 4 years' time, you have limited opportunities to develop the relationship with your players that is going to, one, help them be good people, and, but two, to develop a relationship that's going to help the program win as well, you have a limited number of time. So the faster you're able to start the relationship development, the better off the program is going to be too. And, being involved with the youth programs as a varsity coach, I think gives you that opportunity to get those relationships developed and going as soon as possible. And that helps you build the culture that you want to build.
It does.
When they come in, they're ready to go. And then, they're ready to go. So,
I want to say something here that I think is an important point, and that is one of the ways that, like for me, that I want to be involved in our youth programs is it's kind of what we were talking about. It's what we sort of opened up with and we're talking about there at the beginning, and that is the value of skill and development over winning. If those two things were to ever come into conflict with one another, they shouldn't, but they sometimes will, right?
They do a lot.
They do a lot, and I mentioned just because you have a winning group of kids that are winning all the time when they're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and in the middle school even, it doesn't always translate to winning in varsity. And so what I guess what my point is we have to be careful what we value when we say, hey, we value our youth programs. And because I think sometimes there's this confusion in certain communities where all of your youth programs are dominant. Like they win all the time. And then they get to high school and it's like, why aren't our varsity programs better than they are? And so what happens is you often start pointing fingers. Well, we don't have the right coaches. And so we hire a different coach every year. And we don't have the right people. They're not playing the right people and all this. And I think what typically happens in those situations is that by the time those kids are juniors and seniors, they're just not any better than they were when they were 12 years old. They're not any better because they were bigger than other kids. They were faster than other kids when they were 12, but we didn't develop them.
Right.
We didn't teach them, and not just develop, we didn't teach them how to develop, how to continue to develop, how to get better. And we did, and not only did we not do it with those ones that were down there playing in those games, but we certainly didn't do it with the ones that were sitting the bench in those games. And so they don't even playing anymore in high school. Some of those kids aren't even playing. They left sports altogether.
Right.
The ones that are playing didn't get any better either.
Yeah.
So not only are they worse, they're a lot worse. Right? And so now it's not translating. So it's like, well, we used to win when our kids programs win all the time. Why can't we win as a varsity program? Must be the coach's fault. Sometimes it is. But a lot of times it's not, because the emphasis at the youth level was only on winning, not on development.
Yeah.
And I would like to try to find a way to communicate that the way that we are going to develop winning varsity programs is by making sure that our number one priority is development of every kid that comes out to play. Fundamentals, skills, development, and we're doing them the same way. We're doing they're learning the game. They come to us with a high IQ for baseball, football, basketball, volleyball, softball, track, whatever it is. They come to us with a high IQ for that sport because that was developed in them as a youth. I can't tell you the number of kids that I see who are really athletic. I've got people saying, man, I don't understand what happened to that kid. When he was 12, he was awesome, right? And like now he gets to high school and the game's moving too fast for him, and he's not as good because mentally he's not very well prepared.
Yeah.
And I'm not. There's not necessarily a specific example of that. I'm just saying that happens. I mean,
Absolutely.
It happens enough that you could generalize it and say, yeah. I mean, it happens.
Yeah. And if he doesn't or she doesn't maintain that advantage in strength and speed, things get really, really tough for them because like we talked about earlier, everything else starts to level up. Kids at a young age, there's kids that are more aggressive than others. Take that. You can have the same kid, same skill, same strength, same speed. One's more aggressive. Mm-hmm. They just go after it better than the other kid. Yeah. And they stand out in youth programs ahead of that other kid. But if you develop that other kid, aggression's a mindset, it's a mentality. You can develop that. You develop that other kid. Now you've got two of them.
You got two aggressive kids in high school. Yeah.
So we have to look for that. That's a good point.
In order to develop that kid as a youth, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to have to spend time with him. You're going to have to give him time in games as well. You're going to have to. True. So I want our JV team to play all of our kids. Yeah. I want to see them compete in a game. Why? Because quite frankly, I mean, yeah, I want you to win. I want you to play to win, but I'm more concerned about their development than I am about you winning your JV record.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what our JV record was this year. I think we lost 4 games. I think we played 11, right?
I think we were 6 and 8, 6 and
somewhere
7 or 7
somewhere
and 8,
around there.
something like that, yeah.
So, but
we were 6 and 7.
I'm not
We
even
had 13
sure.
games.
Like I'm not even sure. So it's and you know, no one's going to remember it. No one. I mean, even if they went undefeated, no one's hanging a banner in our gym saying, "Hey, our JV team won the TV." There is no such thing as TVC. There's no league championship for a JV team.
Yeah.
There just isn't. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to minimize that. Like some people are like, "Oh, my kid played JV," and you're acting like it's not that big of a deal. It is a big deal. The big deal
very
is
important.
we're preparing you to be a varsity player. That's
Sure.
the big deal.
Yeah, for sure. I would say that we're speaking in pretty vague terms right now when we say that everyone should play and things like that. I think there is that time to play for everyone. That doesn't mean everyone plays the same amount.
Equal.
Yes, thank
we
you.
used to, and even as early as 7 years old in the Sandlot, we had a saying, and that is, fair playing time is not the same thing as equal playing time. Every child, and so we have it's in the bylaws. Every child will receive fair playing time, and we go out of our way to explain to the parents what that means.
I like that.
It is not equal playing time.
Right.
And here's what fair playing time is based on: their attendance, their effort, their skill.
Yeah.
It's actually part of the equation,
Sure.
right? And a whole list of those things. There's like 5 or 6 of them, right? And their attitude is one of them. I think, and there's one more. I'm trying to think what it is. It's been a long time since I looked at that. But that is a major thing to consider, right? Because they all should get time, but it's not going to be equal time.
And by the way, that concept is part of development
It is
for the individual.
It is. It is
To understand that, you know what? And sometimes
it's development for the parents.
you got to learn
for
that
the
life
coaches.
isn't going to be fair either.
Yeah. Sometimes it may not be fair.
Yeah.
Right? Well, it certainly isn't going to be fair to everyone.
Right.
Right? I mean, we have to also remember is fair on the basis of what the coach deems as fair.
True.
Right? Because you sitting in the lawn chair or, the one that drives the child to practice and the games and the one that has to console them when they're sad and the one who loves them obviously more than anybody in this world, fair is going to be defined differently.
Yeah.
For you and me, right? As those are my kids, I define fair as he's out there a lot more than he is, right?
True.
And we have to just be okay. I mean, we have to accept it. I mean, you may not necessarily need to be okay with it, but you need to accept it if it's different than.
Well, I think we talk about this a lot. Those opportunity or those moments that we feel uncomfortable and maybe disappointed, and we recognize that our kids are disappointed. Gold mine, a great opportunity.
Yes.
To teach them things that are going to help them, many, many, many years, and not just during the sports season. So,
Certainly.
we should be on the lookout for those types of things for sure.
Yeah. When you mentioned let's talk about this today, I always kind of look for articles and things that I can read to just sort of get some insight that other people have had to this. And I happened to do a search for positive connections, positive benefits, values that youth programs have on varsity programs or high school programs. And actually, the National Federation of High School Sports, the NFHS website, posted an article in February of this year where it talked very specifically about this very issue. It's called Creating a Positive Connection Between Youth High School Sports in a Community, Youth and High School Sports in a Community. And I just want to read a little bit of this because I think some of this is really good to consider. It begins by saying a successful program, one which meets the needs of students. Now, he's taught in the National Federation of High School Sports. These articles are all written to high school coaches and high school athletic directors. Okay, and so this is actually on a page that athletic directors would go to and read, because when it comes to like what to do, how to make this happen, it's all geared geared toward ADs doing this, believe it or not coaches. ADs making these connections.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and so
I mean, if you think about the way programs are built, I mean, they
overall
run
sports
the show,
program. Yeah. So anyway, a successful program, one which meets the needs of students, is not based solely on a high school staff putting all the pieces together at the varsity level. It takes a community to help achieve this goal. The nature of success begins with building a positive culture between the youth and high school programs. Winning should be considered an incidental byproduct. Developing a tradition of excellence takes years of development from the youth programs to middle schools and then to the high school. I like that it says winning should be considered a positive byproduct, because it's putting that emphasis on that whole point that I mentioned a minute ago of this confusion as to why does it seem like our youth programs win all the time, but then our high school programs don't have a consistency of winning, because your youth programs don't have a consistency of developing positive culture and building these kinds of development as being the number one priority. And when that happens, I think it does flow into high school more consistently. Like you will see more winning on a consistent basis.
I guarantee you will.
You will.
There's no, I mean, you can't argue.
Take any program. Like everybody listening right now could think of a high school program in their state that is always in the mix of things at the end of the year, right? So whatever that, and it may not be like every sport in their school, but like such and such has a basketball team, that they're in it every year. How do they do that? Because you can't recruit. You're playing with the kids that you're dealt, right? Yes. Every year. And or this football team's always in it. This baseball team's like years and years of success. Whatever team that is, look at what their youth programs look like. Look at what's happening in the just do some just go take a look and see. And it may be that the youth programs are winning all the time. But I guarantee you the bigger emphasis is that those youth programs are doing a lot of the same things. Like they're fundamentally learning how to play the game the same way that they're going to be playing it in high school. And there is something to be said for longevity. I mean, it's hard to develop that kind of relationship with youth programs if you're a high school coach and you've only been there for 1 or 2 years. And
for sure.
Or the high school program itself changes coaches every 1 or 2 years.
Oh,
that's impossible.
Makes it very, very difficult to have sustained success when you're constantly changing coaches, for sure. No doubt about it.
There is a question in this article. I'm sorry, you were looking for what you wanted to say, and I could see it. I could see it burning, like your ears were smoking out from underneath those headphones.
Yeah, I can't put things. I feel like you're trumping points on me. Like
sorry about that.
You shoot one, and then you go to another one, and I can't get back to the first one.
You left your computer in the car,
you're sitting there. You got good stuff.
I got notes in front of me, and Coach is just sitting over there at the table. He's just like my guest today. He's just sitting there. Just shooting from the hip, and you didn't bring your notes in.
I forgot it because you didn't have my parking lot.
There's a question that is posed to parents in this article as well, and it is it's basically to set it up. I'll say that it says studies show that 76% of young people on middle school and high school sports teams, so these are scholastic sports teams, participated in that sport as a youth. Mm-hmm. So a good majority of the kids that come out and play in high school have played that game as a youth, right? Every now and then you have someone who, I haven't played this ever, right? And so then they ask the question, however, what did those students learn at that level? Who coached and provided the necessary skills to be successful in a high school program? These are good questions. And then I like this question. Do the parents and the athletes understand at that level, the younger levels, do the parents and the athletes and the coaches understand what is necessary to be successful on the secondary level? So it's like what you were saying there earlier. It goes, this stream runs both directions.
It's conversation,
right? It's not just, hey, we need our high school coaches to be more involved in our youth programs, but part of what makes, I think, varsity programs successful is you have the desire in the youth programs for all of these parents, kids, and coaches to think about what's going to make me, what's going to, right now, what I really want is to be I want to win a state championship when I'm in high school. And I think when you have a group of kids in a community that are thinking that, then, and not just kids, parents, I mean, because the people who have the most influence on them at that age is parents, right? So when the parents are thinking, man, we want our kids to win a state championship, right? And I will tell you this. I've got a story for you along the lines of this. When Brock's teammates that he graduated with were young, 7, 8 years old, and they were they grew up playing together, right? Baseball. I'm speaking, and they played every sport together, but they played, baseball was they went the furthest. That particular group went the furthest. They went to the regional final 2 years in a row. And all of those kids, when they were young, we were very intentional. And part of that reason was because I was coaching at the high school level, at pointing them to, look, everything that we're doing right now is our goal. We want to see you guys in the state championship. Mm-hmm. We want you to think about that right now. Whether it was because we were playing some local youth rec ball, but we were also playing travel ball, because that brings a whole nother club, and travel ball, that brings a whole nother, is that considered youth sports, right? And how do we involve in that?
How does that fit into development too?
Because and I believe that
was my point I was going to make is a lot of times travel ball, you don't even think about development
for your high school team.
How often did your young guys practice as a team through those years when they were traveling around and playing in tournaments and things like that?
I think we had 2 or 3 practices a week at that time. Yeah,
I would say that is an outlier.
Yeah,
I would like to. We've talked,
and
about
we had to find a field. We couldn't.
Well, true.
We couldn't just use the local rec field.
As a travel team, they weren't letting you do that. So, but I think that's the difference between a good travel in quotes experience and I wouldn't say, I guess not bad, but maybe not a great structure, not a great program, is the amount of time that you practice.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it, and I know it happens, and I know other people have seen it, that these travel programs, these travel teams get in a mode of where it's just about the number of games that you're playing. Mm-hmm. It's just about playing a game every weekend or through the week or whatever it is, and that practice time is seriously hindered. We've talked about this.
Yeah,
right? 2 years ago we talked about it in episodes 1 through 7.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. But let me tell you what happened after we won the district championship.
Oh yeah, go ahead, sir.
So this was actually Brock's junior year. We won the district championship, and everybody's afterwards everybody all the parents and kids and everybody's taking pictures and everything, with the trophy and all that, and I had a dad come up to me and gave me a hug, and he said and this was a guy that we coached together as you, we helped, we had like 5 or 6 guys that would help coach, when they were youth. And he said, this is what we were working toward back when these kids were 6, 7, 8 years old. And I said, yeah. He said, let's keep her going. Because this was not the goal. The district championship wasn't the goal. It was state, right? And we came up short, but those kids came dang close, right? And I think one of the reasons they came close, and the reason why it was so meaningful to them, is because they had been thinking about it from the time they were little. We were pointing them to the high school varsity program.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we have a lot of. I wonder how much that value is still really strong today. If you're a youth coach, right? How many? And let's say you're coaching youth football. You're 5, 6 weeks into the season right now. How many times have you looked at your kids and said, "Listen, guys, everything we're doing today is to prepare you for the state playoffs when you're in high school. We want you to get that. You are an Eagle, right? You are a Marauder. You are a Bulldog. Whatever it is that you are, and this is fun and this is important and we love it, but it's going to be awesome when you get to high school,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I just think that that value has to go both ways.
Yeah, you're right. I completely agree with that. And there's got to be, when you're saying things like that, it makes me think that as a sense of team, the a mentality of team goals over individual goals.
Yeah.
I think that gets in the way a lot these days. Everyone wants to see their kids succeed.
Right.
I want to tell you though, you watch your kid win a state championship. It's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day, folks. It don't matter where they play, where they hit in the order.
No.
it really doesn't matter what their role is. It's going to be a good day.
Yeah.
And you're going to that sense.
You're
of
all going to go out to eat
you're looking
afterwards, and you're going to be happy as can be.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's we could that's a whole nother discussion.
Because if you're not in the state championship.
I can't see it.
I don't see it either.
How do you can you imagine that? Like that, I knew what you were going to say there, and as soon as you pointed that out, like I got the sick feeling.
You're
in my
not there.
stomach. Could you imagine a group
infighting about my kid not getting to play in the regional final?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Could you imagine that? I can't. I'm sure it's happened.
It probably has.
Yeah.
But very seldom are you going to have a state championship winner where someone's pouting on the end of that bench.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of team that wins state championships.
Yeah. I actually saw it a little bit at the end of our season last year when we were getting close to having the opportunity to clinch a league title and then go on and win a sectional championship and compete for a district championship. The guys did seem to kind of come together a little bit more, and the players that hadn't played as much kind of embraced their role a little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit
it's
more.
not easy. It's not ever easy.
Oh no, absolutely not.
But it's important though.
Yeah. And I credit those guys, and I did during our end of year get together. I guess it was a picnic. I credited those guys for the success that we had. I mean, they were part of that success of being great teammates and making sure things were running smoothly, and being good examples to the other guys that are out there. Who are you playing for? And hey, there's guys over here that would love to be playing, but you're the one in the spot. So live up to it.
Yeah,
makes a difference.
It does. It does. So yeah, it's
so we solved the problem, right?
I don't know that we solved it, but I mean, it's a big one. It's and I think the issue is it's not just one person's problem. It's not just the varsity coach's problem. It's not just the parents' problem. It's not just the youth coach's problem. It's not just the kids' problem.
It's everybody.
Everybody. And so really, the way, it is. I mean, it's going to take little steps, right? And those little steps, like on behalf of the varsity coach or behalf of the high school coach, right? Get the kids involved. Like have camps. Encourage your current varsity players to be involved in the youth programs. Officiate.
Yeah.
Right? Encourage them to officiate. Things like that. Go watch them play. Simply just going and watching them play makes a huge difference sometimes. It's incredible. I remember showing up at Pomeroy one night and watching, we had a couple different Eastern teams down there playing, 3 or 4 different teams playing actually down there, because a couple of them were playing each other in a championship game. And it was so cool to see parents, like people I didn't even know, come up and say, hey, it's cool to see you here, right? I mean, just that, just being able to go and watch them play a little bit.
I agree with that. I think that is important as well.
And that goes the other way, right?
Yes, it does.
Go watch your varsity team play.
Sure.
Yeah, you got kids playing in the youth program. The ultimate goal is to get them playing for your varsity team. So fill the stands on Friday nights.
Yep.
Fill those stands on Tuesdays.
Build the anticipation. Let them see what they're see what they're working towards.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Definitely.
Yep.
So yeah, so this pendulum swings multiple directions.
It's a lot of it's like a lot of things that we talk about. It's not. I don't think it's something that you can just fix. I think it's something you have to grow, and it takes, like you said, it takes a lot of people. You got to be intentional about it. You got to think about it.
By nature of the word development, it requires time.
Yeah.
Developing in any area at all requires time. There's no magic formula that's going to make you be what you want tomorrow. It requires time, requires relationships, conversations, requires sacrifice, requires a little bit of compromise, maybe, right?
Absolutely.
Compromising.
It's going to be a lot of compromise, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
But, well, because what we're talking about, you're placing the success of the program above everything else is what you're doing when you're, as a high school coach, as a youth coach, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
You want the program to succeed. The program, not just that season, but the program, short term and long term. So, in order to do that, there's sacrifice.
Yeah. Definitely. Good stuff. As always.
Good talking to you, Coach.